Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission, and I would like to call to order this meeting, which is dated November 4th, 2025. It's a regular meeting of the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission at 7 p.m. Please silence your electronic devices. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Burchett.
Here.
Commissioner Gerken.
Here.
Commissioner Bruce.
Here.
Commissioners Modi, Leon, and Faustin are absent. Chair Buckingham.
Here. With 4 members present, I declare a quorum. Now on to the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting dated September 2nd, 2025. Any comments, corrections, or discussion items? Hearing none, can I then have a motion to approve the minutes?
A motion to approve the meeting of the minutes for September 2nd, 2025 for the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the minutes of the September 2nd meeting are so approved. There are no items of pending business, and we've got 7 items of new business and a discussion item thrown in as well, which I believe we'll try to take out of order for the convenience of the parties. But on to the first item of new business, which is a public hearing regarding a text amendment, the petitioner being the City of Rolling Meadows, related to data centers. This proposed amendment would add a definition of data center and establish data center as a permitted use in the M2 zoning district. Staff, is the file in order and has proper notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
A motion to open the public hearing for the text amendment petitioner City of Rolling Meadows for data center and enter the file into the record. Thank you very much.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries. And the public hearing in matter number 1 is now open. I'll call upon the city for their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item, I think, is important. It will certainly be important to the growth and development of the city, but in concept, it's a very simple item. We put in a new definition of data center. We go to our use table, we put a little P in the use table, and all of a sudden, we give folks the chance to make a major investment in the city. All this text amendment would do, again, is essentially make this a permitted use in a subset of the M2 zoning district, which is our manufacturing district down bounded by 53, the Tollway, and Gulf Road. So that area is home to the Arthur J. Gallagher corporate headquarters, the Extended Stay Hotel, Chai, Blue Sky, School Health, and then the Atrium office complex. The Atrium is the site where we believe we have a good shot of recruiting a data center tenant to the city. You might recall that we talked about this at a planning level discussion here a little over a year ago in October 2024. Since that time, the owner of the property has engaged ComEd in a study of what it will take to connect that site to the transmission and distribution system necessary to get the power to recruit that facility. We're expecting the results of that back here within the next 60 days or so, we hope, and we're trying to make sure we are ready to land a tenant for what we think is a very attractive possibility. At 240 megawatts, which is the capacity that's being studied for this site, that would be one of the larger centers, at least announced or planned in the metropolitan area. And as it talks about in the memorandum, it'd be a big investment. It would really change the arc of a lot of what we have going on in this corridor and in the city. However, because of these unique considerations, I do want to emphasize that's why we're limiting this proposal to just this one particular subset of M2. We think the atrium site's the first and probably the only site in the near future that'll develop this way. But as we continue to work through really the redevelopment of office properties in the city to other uses, as that inventory continues to contract, we're pursuing different strategies at different properties, but who knows, maybe we'll have the chance to work with this again in the future. So there are certainly unique considerations to data centers. We think that because of the underlying zoning at this site, excuse me, because of the just the isolated nature of it, honestly, and the infrastructure it's around, that it makes a lot of sense here. It's consistent with the other things you would expect in a heavy industrial district, or at least a modern industrial district, which technically this area is, even if it's mostly office. There are some noise considerations around data centers, but this backs up to a tollway that moves over 100,000 vehicles, including heavy freight, across it every day. It is additive to a point, but the noise that we see in the literature is made by these facilities is less than the noise that you would expect is emitted by that infrastructure asset. We know it has some employment, not a lot. I mean, that's mostly a capital warehouse, a data warehouse, more than it is a place of employment, but there is some employment in there. There's certainly a lot of construction jobs and expanding impact from manufacturing, all the things that go into this facility. So it's a little bit different from other manufacturing facilities in that way, but that's in some ways good. That's not trucks going on Gulf Road or on our local roads. This facility, that's not a lot of traffic that needs to be planned for and integrated in the Gulf Road. There are benefits to that. Typically, we would like to see some benefit to what we would call in the old days daytime population, right? We get a lot of people in our offices. That has a lot of people going to retailers. That has a lot of folks going to our restaurants and so on. Again, that's difficult to come by in this market, in this environment, but quite honestly, the tax benefits of this facility outstrip, from a local economic perspective, anything we could get from any office that was ever built. I had to check these numbers a few times and pinch myself and make sure I wasn't moving a zero around. We are, again, I think, very lucky in the city to have the capacity, to have the water capacity, to have a site as well suited as this, and zoning is the next piece of landing it. The real obstacle at this point, the biggest thing left if this amendment is adopted, is just getting an electricity supply to this site. ComEd has access to the generation capacity in the region. They don't necessarily have the ability to, so Illinois is a net exporter of power into PJM and other areas, mostly to the east. That's mostly from our nuclear fleet here in Illinois, but the question is just being able to deliver it to this particular site with the capacity needed, and that's what that infrastructure study is trying to tell us. If that study doesn't come back, I mean, the site just turns into something else. There's no harm done. It's not as though the lights will start browning out in your house. You need this study for this to work, but we think that this is one of the final pieces to put into place to make this site redevelop. So I know that Brennan, who is the owner and the would-be developer of this site, is here present. They made the trip out to be able to talk to us about it if you like. I'm happy to answer any questions before you open it to public comment, including Brennan or the other folks in the room.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Cole. And I think we would all applaud the city in being proactive here in planning for the future. And I know these data centers are obviously a hot topic in the public discourse, and certainly one of the potential few growth industries that we all may have here in the near future. So this is great. Any questions from Commission?
The only question I have, I know there's businesses there, and I know you said there's limited noise. I'm sure that it's probably far enough away from the businesses there, but is there any concern from any of the people there that noise may come from this facility to their offices?
Yeah, so the most invested folks in this area is Arthur J. Gallagher, who has their corporate headquarters a couple parcels separated.
Yep.
I can't speak for them. They're not participating in this hearing, but certainly they do not want an industrial or a logistics site near them necessarily. That's in part why they bought the property to their east The 2550 Gulf Road tower and tore it down was in part to control the destiny of that parcel. I think they would view data center as an attractive use here. In some informal conversations, members of Gallagher have said that, but no one that I would say could probably speak for the company.
Okay.
You know, again, compared to the other uses that are allowed on this site, some of them can be really noisy. That infrastructure can be really noisy. You know, especially as data centers will continue to adapt to those concerns. I think it is a safe bet to make in this area, in this district.
And I know you said limited employment. I'm thinking that there's got to be somebody kind of monitoring this during the day, maybe like 1 or 2 people at the max, maybe.
Yeah, I defer to our experts on that, if you like.
Sure.
It's more than, I think it's more than 1 or 2, but it's definitely not
Right.
33 acres of office.
Right. Right. More.
So here, if we're gonna, we can come back to staff in a minute, but I think while you guys are here, if you're already gotten up out of your chairs, let's just get it going. So this is on the record, so we need to swear you both in. And we're taking testimony today, so if you could both please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please say yes or no.
Yes.
Assuming it's yes, then could you each please in turn state your first and last name and your business address and spell your name for the record, and speak into the microphone.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kevin Brennan with Brennan Investment Group. Our office address is 10275 West Higgins Road, Rosemont. You want me to spell my first and last?
Sure, please.
KEVINBRENNAN.
Thank you.
And Brian Tanner. I'm actually with KBC Advisors out of Seattle. And we're at 6000 Airport Way, Seattle, Suite 290.
Welcome to the Midwest.
Thank you.
So, what was the
I was just
question?
curious on the amount of people, because I know there's got to be some monitoring inside, temperature, humidity, and all that stuff, because I've been in the business for a long time and I've run smaller data operations. So I was just curious as to what type of employment they're going to be, if it's 24 hours, 8 hours a day, and I'm assuming you're going to have fire protection and all that other infrastructure material.
Correct. So there's, each data center operator is slightly different in terms of their staffing models and how that would go in. But generally speaking, most will commit to, like on a per building basis, 25 full-time employees per building, which on this case we're looking at 2 buildings that would be site planned on the site. And that's just on a full-time basis. There's obviously a large number of part-time or contract employees to it during construction, and the build out of this isn't something that would happen in a 6 or 9 month period. They build these out in a prolonged phase build out, generally speaking, with demand, so it'll likely be more along the lines of a 3-year build out. During those build outs, you're looking at highly skilled labor, especially on the electrical and mechanical side, which in that case you're going to be looking at, for a site like this, probably up to north of 500 construction workers on site at a minimum, and then you'd have additional resources. And a lot of economic development studies also show, especially for these areas, the amount of skilled labor then that builds up around these facilities for long-term care, maintenance, and operation also holds up from an employment basis.
Thank you very much.
When you say that you're going to have the 2 buildings going, are they going to go simultaneously, or are they going to go one after the other?
On this case, we have to attract the groups to the site, and each one will have a different both design as well as phase construction process. So, what we have at least site planned initially is a 2-building layout. Somebody could come in with a different one, but generally they would be a phased construction. So 1 building coming up with the second to follow during that process.
And who are your clients, so to speak? I mean, who do you deal with in terms of the owners or the deliverers, if you will, of the data? Speak to that a bit. Help us understand that.
Yes, I mean, you kind of are broken down into two primary groups. You have large-scale data center owner-operators, commonly referred to as hyperscalers, so Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, Oracle, who have all, in some way, shape, or form, kind of been in and around this market. Then you also have data center development groups who own and operate data center facilities and lease out either just the shell of the building or a complete infrastructure solution to many of those groups or other enterprise users, whoever wants to store their data there. So there's right now a very broad range of data center development groups across the country, both kind of large scale and small. So within the larger or the greater Chicago market, you see everybody from Osiris One to Cloud HQ, QTS, Digital Realty, Edged Infrastructure, Aligned Energy. So there's a large number which are all kind of heavily capitalized and backed data center groups who develop within the market.
And do you then lease out the space or
they would
these data groups, or
they lease out capacity, and it could be to a single party or to large number of groups where they are just developing or delivering the capacity for those groups to deploy servers.
Sure. And if the lease ends, then you can bring somebody else in new, right? It's not like so this should be a relatively stable for the foreseeable future anyway.
Especially for some of the larger deployments, the leases on those alone are trending more towards 15 to 20 years, or it's a direct owner-operator who is operating and controlling the site long-term.
Got it. Thank you. Any other questions from?
Question. Electrical backup.
Yeah.
We're very well in our area of the power outages during storms and stuff like that. I'm thinking that somewhere in there you also have a backup generator that runs for 4 to 6 hours. I'm ballparking.
They do have a backup generators on site to support the load at the facility for emergency situations, and then all of those are, go through state environmental permitting to meet the number of hours that they're allowed to run for testing, which is fairly minimal on a per month basis, but it all depends on the design and type of generators that are being deployed on site, but they do have electrical backup facilities on site, yes.
Thank you. And this question, I'm assuming that you've looked at the designs that they've set out and make sure that the fire and ambulance and whatever can get in there to do whatever they need to do if necessary.
So 2 comments. First, I just have to be excited that we might have stumbled on the one topic where I might know something that Brian doesn't as an expert in this field, which is that the Illinois legislature just a few days ago increased the clean air requirements specifically for those diesel generators serving data centers. So they're held to a nice high standard. Fun fact. To your question, again, we are doing this proactively as part of recruiting a tenant in. So very preliminary site planning work.
Okay.
That site could change. The shape of that could change a lot based on who's recruited. I'm confident that we'll be able to arrange. The code gives us a lot of protections around fire and ambulance. Certainly, this is a more specialized response if indeed we ever had to go in there.
Right.
That's something we're ready to take on, and we'll be able to get training.
So once
we have good mutual aid in the region too for the departments in Elk Grove Village and Mount Prospect that
so
have many of these.
when the SITECOM plan's in, you'll have the proper access to get those equipment in there when necessary, because it hasn't been built yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about that.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Thank you very much.
Guys, I think you could sit down unless we have other questions, but thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Cole?
No. I have none.
So this would be a permitted use. It sounds like staff looked into whether it would be more appropriate for this as a special use. I mean, given all the unique requirements on electricity and water. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So one, if we were more constrained in utility access, I think a special use would make a lot more sense. If we had sites that were closer to residential or really any other sensitive use, I think a special use would make a lot more sense. In this case, we know that even at the scale of this facility, which is significant, even in the way these are measured, we know we have the water, we know we have the ability to get it there, we know that ComEd either has the generation or it won't happen. I mean, the local capacity isn't really a consideration here. This will have dedicated infrastructure. So, the things you would usually control with a special use, those being the big ones for this use, but also just traffic and things, but we don't see those criteria as being there. What we do know is that, development like certainty, this being very big development and having just absolutely exceptional needs to plan for infrastructure. I mean, I believe the ComEd generation connection study itself is just $1 million just to look at where you can put a line on the map. These folks want a lot of confidence that they can build that use. Certainly there are worlds in which you may see this project again anyway. To build this site to its maximum capacity, depending on the tenant, there may be other zoning relief needed, there may not. But we think that making sure it's a permitted use and that we aren't essentially relitigating the use-specific question is going to be important to put this site over the top, especially knowing that regionally a lot of folks are taking different approaches. But certainly here in our local area, our neighbors to the west and to the east are very aggressively pursuing these developments.
Got it. That's fair. So the amendment itself is relatively simple. I mean, it's not like a special use where you've got all sorts of zoning imposed conditions. But here needed, it sounds like then that though there are some pretty heavy regulations that would apply to these types of businesses, but again, outside of our little purview here, correct? So there's state regulation. I mean, there's a host of things that would need to be satisfied by the developer before this could happen, correct?
Sure.
Separate from what we may never even see one of these if there's no special relief needed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But is it mostly state? You mentioned the
biggest obstacle is really going to be the electrical service, the utility
Okay.
connection. There's state regulation mostly around the generators and probably a few other things.
Mhm.
You are in a different world of permitting there, but from our local world, what you see there is it. It's a definition. It's a P, and again, it's a slight narrowing of the P
Right.
to that one particular area. There's only one other area of M2 in town, which is up in the north end of town. That's our public works facility. That's our solid waste transfer station. That has just very different considerations that we wanted to just exclude it entirely.
Sure. But there's some type of business license presumably they'd need to get that would get picked up the city's satisfaction that all the requirements have been met?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any sense of how many we could fit over there in M2, knowing how big these things are?
Sure. I mean, it's all a question of
Yeah.
power. I mean, you can get small. I mean, our development experts might be able to give you a more nuanced answer, but if you have a big site and power, I think they'll build to the limit of the site. There's really just 3 sites there. Really just the land between the atrium and the Gallagher property is the universe, which is School Health, Blue Sky, Waichai. There's some underutilization in those buildings. I mean, they don't all need the space that they used to. but I don't know that any of them are actively looking to redevelop their property.
Okay.
This may be a one of a kind.
Sure. There's been a lot of discussion I've read about the effect of these centers on increase in people's water and electrical bills. So do you have any sense as to that? And that wouldn't have any outsized impact on our residents' bills, would it? I mean, do you have any sense of how that works?
Yeah.
The sharing of the cost? Like if we have, all these data centers within Rolling Meadows, would that have any outsized impact beyond what it normally would for everybody on people's electric and water bills?
Sure. So I'll answer the utility part of that
Yep.
and maybe just the landscape.
Maybe
On
that's an
utilities-
ignorant question, but I just thought I'd ask it. In
Yeah.
terms of
It's
what does this really mean in practice for the average person here?
Yeah. So water is easier to talk about because we, the city, are the water utility. Through our water agency, we're entitled to so much water from Lake Michigan. There's plenty to go around for this use. We've got the infrastructure to get it to this site. One of the things people don't realize necessarily about water utilities is water usage. How much you put through the pipe is really relatively little of the cost that you're paying, especially in a region like this where we're just drawing lake water. Much of that cost is just the cost of replacing miles and miles of pipe on an every so many year cycle, and some of the personnel to keep the system together. Really, the more you put through the system, generally speaking, the more efficient it gets from a cost perspective. Water is less certain. There's a lot of effort to increase the efficiency of water usage of these facilities, which you can see in this average case versus low case. But functionally, most of the revenue from those water sales is going to allow us to reinvest in that system faster. It'll allow us to, be able to replace things more aggressively. I would expect that's an area where you would see lower costs, at least in the foreseeable future, right? It would be a boon to that water fund, which is really its own separate fund in how the city does business. Electricity, there's a lot of ways to answer that. Big picture, we in Chicago are part of a regional grid going all the way to the east called PJM, which is struggling with generation issues. Again, I'm not an energy policy expert, I'm speaking very broadly. Even though it's one big grid, there's still local differences in local outcomes. In Chicago, pricing at that node in Chicago is some of the cheapest in PJM. It's some of the I shouldn't say the cheapest, but I think it's usually in the cheaper half of the country, just because of the fleet of generation resources we have here in Illinois. Again, we are a net exporter of power, but because we're part of this grid that goes to the east with places that aren't quite as lucky, that prices are going up in that whole system, and that affects us. And a big driver of that is the use being imposed by data centers. One of the other things from the energy bill that just went through the State House, don't know that it'll happen, is actually studying setting up a grid just for Illinois to manage some of those dynamics more effectively, to make sure that we can see better pricing, even as pricing is getting more out of whack in other parts of PJM. But there's also efforts to improve the speed at which new generators can come on the grid and more renewables can come on the grid, and to try and more aggressively manage that. So if you're looking at it in a narrow sense, the energy policy sense, fascinating. Are data centers driving the cost increases on the whole? Yes. Is that as important to us in Chicago? Probably not. I mean, that's more important the further east you go. Another way to look at it, which is harsh but true, is these centers are going to be built, and so you can have the benefits of having one in our community and pay higher prices potentially as these centers just develop across the board, or we can have none in our community and pay higher prices as these centers develop across the board. I don't mean to make it sound feudal, but there are outsized benefits to having one, and if you miss the boat, we're still along for the ride.
I have to imagine with all the ones that they're building in Hoffman and Elk Grove Village and everywhere else, Grays Lake, everywhere else, you're paying the extra for the power no matter what. So if we had 2 in Rolling Meadows, you're not going to pay more for just Rolling Meadows because it's kind of like you'll have the 2, or else it'll be everyone else is going to have 20 more. You know what I mean? That's what I
So
would
we're
assume.
paying no matter what, but not necessarily because we've got 1 or 2 within our city limits, right? I mean,
Correct. And other areas of the country, that dynamic is different.
Sure.
Here we are in a very big pool of folks in the Chicago metro. We're part of a very big grid operator. This isn't Texas or something that has its own grid and is managing that differently.
And so our sources of revenue, it's the water usage, and then our share of the property tax, or
So the biggest one, and there's a table in the memo,
Okay.
which is also up here on the slide. Again, these are estimates. Most of this comes from a utility tax. So there's a tax bill or a tax line on everyone's electric bill. That just happens to be lucrative when you're moving 240 megawatts of a facility with that type of capacity, or really 120. The assumptions assume it's 50% built to pump. That's a lot of money, and that's just general revenue, right? There's no restrictions on that. After that, there's a lot of money in water sales. That's really, by best practice, is limited to investments in the water utility, so the physical infrastructure, the personnel, fleet, our payments for treated water, and so on. They'll pay property tax too. There's a discussion there at the end of the memo. Comparing it to a similar site in Elk Grove Village, you're at 2.5 times the property tax valuation. Doesn't quite work out to 2.5 times the revenues in, but it helps, and that is money that goes to other taxpayers who are more reliant on property tax. So that helps the school districts. That helps, for example, the library. There's more spreading of the pot in that world. So that's we're 10 to 15% of the bill. We're not all of it, but that's another source of revenue from this facility as well.
got it.
Less strain on like the schools and everything, I assume.
Compared to multifamily, definitely, right? Compared to a lot of other things that could be
Everything.
built.
Doesn't really need any
Yep.
of it.
Very interesting. Anything else for staff? Thank you. Anybody from the public wishes to provide comment or questions, please step forward. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And could you please state your first and last name, spell your name, and provide your address?
My name is Dylan Seymour, spelled D-Y-L-A-N. Last name S-E-Y-M-O-U-R. Address is 5419 Elizabeth Place. A little bit of background on me. I have a small amount of experience in IT through my college education and my career. But I'm certainly not a subject matter expert regarding data centers. I just have some background knowledge. That said, I have lived just down the road from this district, just down Gulf Road, over by the Portillos my whole life. So this is, literally and figuratively a little close to home for me. Of course, I have some thoughts about, this, amendment on the whole, allowing data centers on the whole, but it's actually not really why I'm here. It's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is that looking through the report made by the staff, I think that there's some flaws in the reasoning in the data presented. And as somebody that really values being as informed as possible when making decisions, I felt it was important to bring them up as, something that can possibly be improved upon. The first thing I noticed was that on page 3, there's the first source is a study done by a commission from the state of Virginia on just data centers, which isn't, good source. Virginia has, I believe, the most data centers in the entire U.S. as a state, so, they're probably pretty well informed. And what the source is used for is stating the average, like the rough estimate of the decibel levels, the noise levels that data centers produce, and specifically the typical range of decibels that residents that filed noise complaints were experiencing at their homes. My first concern with this source is that there's only the one source of information here, and that I think having more than one source of data for a statistic as important as the possible level of noise pollution from any data center in this district is not sufficient enough. I think having more than one source to be able to show, like, hey, it's not just these one people saying, like, oh, it's about so-and-so would be important. On top of that, the Virginia study also does not cite a specific source for their data on this measurement. What they say is that it comes from their own review of, quote, the measurements of selected data centers, end quote, that residents were complaining about, which, they didn't include valuable information such as what size these data centers were. Were they small data centers? Were they big data centers? It doesn't say. So something like that, could vary, and, what does that mean for us with a data center of whatever size we may see in our area? The study from Virginia also does not indicate how far away from the noise source the decibel level measurements were taken for that specific point of data. So, those decibel levels, they could be from distances that are closer or further away from, those specific data centers in Virginia than what we may see in a data center located on the atrium land, or, whatever, the distance from our residential, zones from there. And so I personally believe that it is not possible to really conclusively use this specific data point from this Virginia study to compare, with other sources of noise pollution, which is what it's used for in the report from our staff, to, or even to roughly estimate the volume of noise that we may see from a data center in our district here.
Sure, we understand. First of all, I appreciate you very much coming here tonight and expressing your views. Very helpful. I think we get the gist of that comment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other points to raise? Because we
Yeah.
need to keep this moving, if you would. Thank you.
So there's another source on that page. It's a study from 2007 about the traffic, the noise levels from highway traffic. My concern with that is that I don't really think that highway traffic and data center, the noise generated from those two sources of noise is necessarily comparable, given that highway traffic, I assume, varies throughout the day. So the noise level from it varies throughout the day, whereas a data center is going to be running at a constant level of noise 24/7, 365 days a year, So, I don't know if that's a good enough comparison when it comes to deciding, will a data center be too loud, or have an impact on the residents. And then finally, I noticed that there wasn't any data regarding what typical, noise levels or utility usage you would see in an industrial district in general, or even specifically what is permitted or intended for the M2 district over on Gulf Road. Without having that data, I think it's, difficult to see how data centers compare, is it similar? We don't know, because we have the information for the data centers, but do we have the information for other industrial uses? It's not there. I'm sure it exists, but, I think that, these, not necessarily like incorrect information, but, this information is important to have when making a decision about whether to allow data centers. I don't have any strong opinion on whether a data center should be included, but, it's hard to decide when, you don't have enough information.
Sure, we appreciate your thoughtful comments coming here tonight and expressing those. I guess I would just throw it back over to Mr. Cole. If staff has any response to Mr. Seymour's points, at least in general, just on the matter of the source of your research, if you will, used to come up with I guess really, the issue is maybe should this be a special use or permitted or not at all? So I guess with those distinctions, what are your thoughts, Mr. Cole, on how this source of research plays into your decisions or your recommendations today?
Sure. So I appreciate Mr. Seymour's comments, as you said, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that folks are taking an interest in what we're up to at the city and are really looking at it critically. I got into this business by sitting right about where Mr. Seymour was and thinking the person in my seat was an idiot. So always happy to recruit folks to the line of work that way. So a few comments. First, we are giving a real surface level review of these impacts because we thought it was relatively self-explanatory. We're not trying to minimize these effects. We're not trying to overstate them either. In our review of noise articles, there is a lot of figures that I think are not as applicable or maybe more misleading. One of the preeminent examples says that data centers generate somewhere in the order of like 85 to 90 decibels. That's a measurement from inside the data center, which isn't really zoning.
That sounds a bit absurd.
yeah, it's not quite it. The Virginia study is in there because, as Mr. Seymour said, it is Virginia has a lot of experience in these. It's a state level agency that was charged with producing a very professional report, a very politically neutral report. I love those legislative analyses because these are folks that have looked at all sides of an issue, and you don't have the same exposure to one researcher or one study's opinions, even if it's peer reviewed. So that's a lot of the reason for the selection there and the focus there. I think that's the best study of the ones we reviewed, and if you're looking at more information, that's a great study to look at. Similarly, I don't dispute Mr. Seymour when he's talking about the decibel generation from I-90. So that California study is because most of the field has moved away from these rules of thumb. Now they want you to get the free program from FHWA, spend 3 hours learning how to use it, draw out the whole model of the center line, and then it spits out a more accurate decibel number for you to use, which wasn't quite practical and I think has more of a risk of being wrong than an older rule of thumb. Again, he's right that number is based on the threshold at which you would take action for the FHWA. It's intended to tell you when you might need to look at sound walls or things. So it's based on one of the more peak hours. Don't disagree that noise varies from time to time of the day, but should also be said, that part of town is all but vacant in the evening hours. There are no residences to the north, to the west, to the south, to the east. It is on an island in many ways, which is another reason why we think it makes a lot of sense to put here.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Cole. I mean, we're not in a position here as non-experts to judge one way or the other,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we appreciate, creating a record here on this topic. And, it sounds like if the issue is as it is, that we're talking about allowing these potentially in M2, the manufacturing district, that's one thing. But if we're going to be allowing it in residential or another more sensitive district, I think the standards would probably be higher in terms of the data that we're using to base the decision on. Did you have anything else, Mr. Cole?
Yeah, I did omit one part of the
Sure.
answer, which I'm sorry about. So the standards for industrial noise, they are there in the memo from the Illinois Pollution Control Board. So there's a link to them. They weren't reproduced in there. But there are standards for the emissions from industrial land to other industrial land to residential land, and so on. And those are enforceable no matter what you do here tonight. So we've got some ability to make folks show that they will meet those standards before they go in. We have enforcement action that we could take afterwards if we needed to. Just want to emphasize that there are guardrails on that topic as well.
Interesting. I think that certainly should help.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I think this is a reasonable use of this data, and this sounds like a reasonable approach to me under the circumstances, again, given we're talking about the M2 manufacturing district. So any other questions of Mr. Seymour or staff on this point?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Really appreciate you coming tonight.
Of course.
Anybody else from the public wishes to provide testimony or comment? Nope. Any other questions of the commission for staff? I think it's now time then to close the public hearing in matter one. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
I'll motion to close the public hearing for text amendment petitioner City of Rolling Meadows Data Center.
A motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now closed. We have a sample motion prepared by staff. Unless there's any issues to discuss, it sounds like we're ready to vote in the affirmative on it. Could I then have a motion for recommendation to approve the petition and the findings?
I'll make the motion. Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of fact by the petitioner attached into Exhibit 1 and recommended by the City Council, approve the text amendment for public hearing text amendment petitioner of City of Rolling Meadows Data Centers.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Burchett.
Yes.
Commissioner Gerken.
Yes.
Commissioner Bruce.
Yes.
Chair Buckingham.
I'm a yes. I believe the findings of fact on the standards in the record have been met. And so with 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion for recommendation to approve the text amendment is approved and will be forwarded to City Council for first reading at their next meeting on, November 10th.
Yes, next
Correct.
Monday, an exception from the usual schedule due to the Veterans Day holiday.
Got it, November 10th. So that concludes matter 1. On now to matter 2, which is a special use permit for utilities on 1901 Gulf Road. Petitioner is Commonwealth Edison Company. The special use permit would authorize the existing use of the site and the construction of a 100-foot monopole necessary for radio communications to facilitate the applicant's public utility operations. Staff is the file in order and has proper notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for a special use permit for utilities, 1901 Gulf Road, petitioner Commonwealth Edison, and enter the file into the record.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now open. I would now call upon Petitioner ComEd to come forward. We're familiar with the packet, read the materials, very detailed, very clear, but now's your chance to either summarize or supplement anything you wish, and then for us to ask you questions. So, sir, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Could you please state your first and last name, spell your name, and provide your business address?
First name is Joseph. Last name is Turnage. That's Joseph. And the last name is Turnage. My address is 201 Arthur Avenue in business address 201 Arthur in Mount Prospect. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you. And how are you related to the applicant or petitioner?
I'm the External Affairs Manager for ComEd, and I have my team here tonight who will be presenting our presentation.
Excellent. Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, guys, and thank you for having
Sure.
us out. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Scott Safe. He's one of our attorneys, and he'll take you through the presentation. I also have team members, which includes engineers, in case you guys have any additional questions about what we talked about tonight.
Sure. And so if we have others in addition to council that we know, that you know want to present, we can just swear everyone in at once.
Wanna do that
or we
now?
can just do one at a time. And we can call up people as needed if there are questions and swear them in later.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give should be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, first and last, spell your name, provide your business address.
Scott, last name Safe, S like Sam, A-E-F like Frank. I'm an attorney at Sidley Austin in Chicago. My business address is 1 South Dearborn Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60603.
Great.
You want to do the others too while we're doing it?
I don't think
we're
there's
happy
gonna
to
be
do
any
all of them.
others.
I'm here with, just to tell you who's with us, Ricardo Ramirez, who is a senior project manager whose expertise is IT, to talk about the technical aspects. I have Sean Rogers and Jordan Williams, who are also project managers who are more focused on the civil aspects of the site. I have Sergio Maraquin from Sargent & Lundy, who's the engineer of record on the project. I have Amy Degnan, who's in-house zoning counsel for ComEd. So all of the team is here to help if needed, but
Sure.
instead of swearing all of them in all at once.
Yeah. I'm not sure we'll need everybody, but I appreciate you bringing the team in, and looking forward to hearing the presentation.
So I'm going to quickly, I know you have a lot of business, I'm going to focus on a few slides in particular. Slide 1 is just showing you the location, which is west side of New Wilkie Road, just north of the tollway, south of Gulf Road. Slide 2 is reminding you, I guess, it's an M1 zoning district with commercial or other industrial around, as you can see. The next slide is just a summary of what we're doing that's in the packet. It's an 85-foot tall structure plus 2 15-foot extensions. One is a lightning rod, one is an antenna extension. And these are, I'll explain this in more detail, but it communicates with sensors in and around the region. The structure's on an existing foundation in the middle of the substation, but not at a location that interrupts the electrical equipment that's there or for the future. The next slide, now I'm going to get into a little more detail to explain what the technology is doing. There are 2 key smart grid technologies that this structure supports, and both are a mouthful, but it plays a little bit from the prior discussion. But this technology focuses on distribution. So 34 kilovolt and 12 kilovolt distribution lines that emanate from the substation. And the first aspect of this is something called distribution automation, or DA. And the idea is there are sensors in the distribution circuits that communicate with an antenna support structure like this. And so there's wireless communication going back and forth. And the idea is the sensors are tied to what I have in quotes here called reclosures that can sectionalize outages, know exactly where the outages are, and reroute the power seamlessly around a fault, as opposed to kind of the legacy system, which is where crews, if there's an outage, need to go out and figure out where's the outage, take time finding it, and then take time repairing it. This is an electronic system using the radio system, a mesh radio system, which I'll explain, to wirelessly route the power around the fault. And the typical emergency situation would be a lightning strike. So the technology can sectionalize and isolate. There's maybe a flicker of the lights, and the lights stay on. So that's the first part, distribution automation. The next slide is a bunch of words, and it all relates to something called voltage optimization, or VO. And just simplifying it, the idea is to use wireless technology like this to control, in the background, matching the electric voltage and the even flow of voltage to the needs of the equipment that it's powering. And the idea is to adjust the incoming supply voltage to the optimum level needed by the equipment. The end result, and so there's a consistent power supply. The end result is there's an energy reduction that customers don't, that there's cost savings and a reduction in the power usage by this matching, ideally, of voltage to equipment. So that's what these points boil down to, and that's the second function, the second smart grid function of this antenna support structure. So if we go to the next slide, just to keep moving, these are technologies that are identified in state law. There were 2 state laws that triggered all this. One in 2001 called the EMA, and I can give you the full name, but Energy Infrastructure Modernization Act, and the second one in 2016, which is FEJA, Future Energy Jobs Act. So both of those called on ComEd and other utilities to invest in these initiatives. This is all part of that rollout. So just to keep going quickly, the next slide is just a map of Rolling Meadows that you know about. But the key one is that if we can move to the next one, this is explaining why there's a need for the structure. It's showing that this mesh, the whole system operates as a mesh network of relatively evenly spaced structures like this. They have to be at secure locations. That's why they're at substations. The signals from the antenna go back and forth to the secure backbone, IT backbone of the company, which is housed in each control building of a substation. So what you're seeing is the area highlighted in green is the area at the fringes of existing reception, at the fringes of the existing reception from existing structures. The red dots are in Palatine, where there's a structure. The green dots are from antennas in Prospect Heights. To the south, where the red is, there's a structure in Mount Prospect, in the southwest quadrant of Mount Prospect, and these are all at ComEd substations. And the orange dots are from a set of antenna at a substation west of Meacham Road, right off I-90, sort of back behind IKEA. So this is at the area that this structure would serve is kind of at the fringes of all that reception area, and is to enable clear communication with the distribution circuits in and around Rolling Meadows. So those are, we can flip through the rest. That's kind of the heart of what, and this is ComEd only, secure, exclusive use by ComEd, directly linked to the IT backbone of the substation. It's very low power. The frequency is 902 to 928 megahertz, which is an industrial, scientific, and medical band. There's to avoid any interference, there's continual hopping of the wire, the radio frequencies in that range. It doesn't always operate on a single frequency, and there's encryption. So all of this is low power, very safe, with absence of interference. Next slide. This is just a busy slide, but it's intended to show there's a variety of these 100-foot structures around the region where we've highlighted the north suburbs. I won't read them all. Where ComEd has a tall structure, like a microwave tower, we co-locate these antenna. That doesn't exist at the Rolling Meadows substation, which is why we've proposed the structure that we have. This is an elevation of it, pretty simple. There's it's an 85-foot structure on top of a 1-foot existing foundation. The right thing sticking up is an antenna extension, and the left is a lightning rod for lightning protection. There's an image on the right of what it looks like. There's another image sort of way back in the back, sort of a thin, unlit structure. The site plan is next, although it's in your packet. We're a minimum of 127 feet from the north, 140 feet from the east, and further distances to the south and west. The next structure, and I'm almost at the end, is, the next slide is showing the structures around the substation today. In the back, it's a little hard to see. There's 114-foot, two of them, structures. You can see the previous 85-foot structure. This is an image from a few years ago, and then the others. There's a 154-foot cell tower in the foreground. That is not a ComEd cell tower. It's on the edge of the ComEd property. We believe that cell tower is owned by Crown Castle, and it's used for commercial cell service. So nothing to do with this project. The next slide just shows the same information, the different heights. And then the final slide is, I can go through these, but they're in the packet, our findings of fact, which if the chair would like, I can run through or refer to our written materials. But one thing I did want to point out is finding of fact 4B, the comp plan, the business development strategic plan explicitly encourages investment in ComEd infrastructure. So this proposal really does advance that directly. And the rest of the standards are really what I went through, similar. And
Yeah, I think they're in the record. They're very clear, very detailed. We're familiar with them. So
that's what I wanted to cover.
Anything else to supplement? But yeah, that's very, very. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Very clear. Is that it, sir?
That's it.
Great. I think it's pretty straightforward. Any questions of Council Safe?
The question is, I'm assuming the 85-foot pole has been taken down, and that's where the 150-foot pole is going to go.
Not 150 foot. The 85-foot pole was taken down a year or two ago.
Yeah.
It had technology that was no longer needed. This is 85-foot pole back with two 15-foot extensions.
Gotcha. So, but it's going in about the same place, correct?
In the identical location, on the same foundation, which is still there.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
I think we should be good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. We may have other questions after staff, but we'll let you know. Thank you. Staff, Mr. Cole or Mr. Savage?
Certainly. Very little to add to the presentation. Again, utilities are a special use. We thought our interpretation was that it was in our best interest to bring that to you as a special use and to authorize it formally. We've been working with ComEd, knowing that this is an important project to their operations, and certainly we've been working with ComEd to try and get reliability improvements in the city, as you heard during the presentation. So we're very supportive of this proposal. It is the draft ordinance you have in front of you is a very standard draft. There's one special condition we recommend, which is probably implicit anyway, which is just that this tower just be used for ComEd's utility operations. Won't be used as a cell site or anything like that. I don't know that it really could be with that other cell tower there, but doesn't hurt to put that in. I'd also note there's in the legal description, there's a drafting issue. We didn't take the full legal description from the deed. If you recommend that forward, we'll correct that before it's adopted. But same property, everything of that nature. happy to answer any questions, but I think this is pretty straightforward from the staff perspective.
Sure, I agree. Any questions of Mr. Cole?
So do we need to put that in there that they need to fix the deed then? In the
That was
proposed-
our error on the staff end, so just so everyone know, we were working with ComEd on a very expedited timeline to try and get this in, just so they didn't have to do this in the middle of winter. I think we've had this for a few days, and so we just didn't pull the full description out on our side.
So if we make the recommendation, that'll be then corrected accordingly. Is that
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Perfect. Anything else? This was easy. Okay, anybody from the public here wish to comment on matter 2? Great. Anything else for staff or petitioner? Hearing none, can I then have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
I'll make a motion to close the special use permit for utilities, 1901 Gulf Road, petitioner Commonwealth Edison.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes. Yes. All
Yes.
opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries, and the public hearing in matter number 2 is closed. We have a sample motion prepared by staff. It appears to be in order and the commission ready to vote in the affirmative on it. Can I then have a motion for recommendation to approve the petition and the findings?
Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of fact provided by the petitioner and attached hereto as Exhibit 2, and recommend that the City Council approve the special use permit as set forth in the draft ordinance for special use permit utilities, 1901 Gulf Road, petitioner Commonwealth Edison.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerken,
Yes.
Commissioner Roos,
Yes.
and Chair Buckingham.
I'm a yes. This doesn't really change the look and feel of what else is going on there. It seems relatively benign, and the standards of findings of fact and the standards have clearly been demonstrated to this commission in your well-done presentation. So I'm a yes, and that's with 4 yeses and 0 nos. The recommendation for the approval of this text amendment, or special use rather, will now be forwarded to City Council for first reading at their next meeting on November 10th. So all we're doing tonight, we only have the power to recommend an action to the City Council. They're the ones that make the binding decision based on review of the record that we've created here tonight with your help. And so the matter will be decided on the merits as early as November 10th. There's a chance they could bring you back for a second reading, hopefully not. So obviously, you're welcome to attend November 10th for the City Council hearing based on what we've done tonight. So that's it.
Thank you.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out. Yes. Thank you. Okay, on to matter number 3. Moving right along, a public hearing on a text amendment, petitioner being the City of Rolling Meadows. Text amendment would clarify antennas, antenna structures, and antenna support structures in the code related to antennas, including adding, modifying, or deleting definitions of antenna, antenna structure, antenna support structure, and the uses of these terms throughout the existing regulations. Staff, is the file in order and has proper notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
I'll motion to open the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, clarifying antennas, antenna structure, and antenna support structure, and enter the file into the record.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now open. ComEd parties, you're welcome to leave at any time, or you're obviously, if you like, you can remain and watch the action. But it's not going to be much more exciting than what you've already seen. So do what you want. So thank you and good night. Okay, staff, your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Exceptionally brief. In the last couple meetings of this commission, we've seen the first real times we've worked with antennas or cell service since our new zoning code was drafted around 2020, 2021. We found some issues. Some of those were pointed out by our last set of petitioners. Some of those just came from our staff analysis of the cell tower there at the Cook County Courthouse. So really it's just drafting issues. I think I can safely say in some cases it's just not clear if certain terms were meant to refer to building mounted or tower mounted. In some cases we were using terms we didn't really define too precisely. And then in one case, it wasn't clear. It'd be a very absurd outcome if this group were to do a public hearing, give someone a special use permit for a 100-foot tall tower or a 300-foot tall tower, what have you, and then it wouldn't be legal for them to then build that tower. We don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. So this is all cleanup. I hope the ordinance speaks for itself. We're happy to answer any questions.
Cleanup is good while we have the time. So any questions of Mr. Cole?
Nope, I don't have any.
Yeah, it seems relatively straightforward. We'll defer to the staff certainly on the technical points, but I think everything in the presentation makes sense to me. So no other questions of staff? Anyone from the public here on matter number 3? Hearing none, we have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter, please.
A motion to close the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, clarifying antennas, antenna structure, and antenna support structure.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now closed. To the sample motion prepared ably by staff, can I have a motion for recommendation to approve the petition and the findings?
Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of fact by the petitioner and attached to hereto as Exhibit 1, and recommend that the City Council approve the text amendment as set forth in the draft ordinance for public hearing. Text amendment, petitioner of City of Rolling Meadows, clarifying antennas, antenna structure, and antenna support structure.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gherkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Bruce,
Yes.
Chair Buckingham.
Yes. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion for recommendation to approve the text amendment has been approved and will be forwarded to City Council for their next reading, or first reading at the next meeting, November 10th. That's matter number 3. On to matter number 4.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
I actually would recommend that as chair,
Do we wanna
would
go?
ask without objection. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, I thought we were doing that after 4, but we'll certainly be happy to take your lead. So as long as there's no objection from my fellow commissioners, I think we'd like to take out of order the next matter, which is actually the discussion item regarding Hicks Road, doing that before we continue on with matters 4 through the remainder. Is there any objection to going in that order, taking the discussion item next?
No.
Nope.
Great. Okay, so please proceed. There's no need to open a public hearing, or we're good? What about testimony on the record sworn?
You do not need to swear testimony on this.
Okay. So we're ready just for presentation?
Mr. Sapp,
or
would you like
would-
to introduce it briefly?
Yeah, if staff could go ahead and tee it off.
We can briefly introduce it. So The property owner at 1280 to 1300 Hicks, which you may know as a Shell gas station with a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts at 1280, and then a now disused car wash at 1300. I might have those addresses back to front. Are looking at consolidating these two lots and then redeveloping them into a single parcel, which would include a truck diesel fueling station, a modified drive-through, and then some kind of other improvements as well. I'd like to introduce Rob Costello from Torch Architects, who has been working on the development team for this project, and we thought we should bring it to you as a discussion item to, give them direction and assurance for their project going forward.
Sure. Sir, welcome.
Thank you.
Please take it away.
Sure. So, as Robert introduced, the addition would be to add a diesel pumps on the north side on the car wash property. In order to do that, they like usually to separate the truck traffic from any other regular vehicle traffic. So they'll be taking the east side of the site up against the property line for one-way truck traffic to bring them to the new diesel pumps up on the west side. With that, the drive-through would relocate to the middle of the site to serve the same Dunkin' window on the north side of the building. The existing building would stay the same. There'd be some landscape islands, landscape perimeter that'd be added. At staff request, they'd close two of the curb cuts up at the intersection and landscape them. The sign would be renovated but stay in the same general location on the corner, and then new perimeter landscaping throughout.
Okay. That's about it?
That's about it.
Great. Any questions?
So the way I understand it, the diesel fuel pumps would be where the abandoned car wash station is at. And that would be developed separate from the Dunkin' Donuts and stuff like that? I mean, they would be like separate. Only the cars could go to the gas station and only the trucks could go to the diesel fuel, correct?
Correct.
Now, is there gonna be a separate entrance for the trucks to get in there and out of there?
Yes, so they'll go behind the building on the east side, where it's listed as one way. That'll only be for truck traffic to head north behind the building and then turn up west towards those, the diesel pumps. And so they'll only go, running north behind the building and then head up west towards Hicks Road. And they'll only be able to exit out onto Hicks Road.
Now, this drawing, it looks like the order board for the menu is in the truck thing. Is that correct? Or am I reading it wrong?
It would sit in that island, but the car would be on the south side of that. But
Okay,
it sits in the island between the truck drive and the drive-through lane.
okay. So they would come in the same area for the, where the trucks are at to go through the Dunkin' Donut around and then exit out the other end, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so the island would separate it, so it would be like a little roadway where the order board is, they're like on the, trying to figure out which way that is, on the inside and then around to pick up their food or whatever, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming that the diesel operation and as well as the gas station would be 24 hours, correct?
I actually don't know. I'd have to check with the operator. Is it 24 hours now? I'd have to check.
I actually don't have that information. We could quickly search that for
Well,
It would not change from what it is. They're not intending to change from whatever it is.
I'm just saying the trucks may need gas 24 hours. That's my thinking.
They don't intend to change the hours for this use. So whatever it
Okay,
is now.
so whatever the hours are is what are the hours. Now, is there gonna be extra lighting in this area and islands for this area?
Yeah,
for
we'll
the
have to do
truck?
photometrics and meet site lighting requirements, so it'll all be redone for to meet requirements.
Because I know a lot of trucks use that road. I mean, that's a very heavy truck passageway, because I've gone down that.
And your question was on the site, is that what you?
No, I'm just talking in general. There's a
Oh.
very heavy truck traffic. So once they see it, they're gonna think, is it 24 hours? So that's just something you may wanna think about it.
So typically the canopies are lit, and
Okay.
then when business is closed, the canopies are,
Okay,
the light goes down, so the site goes down to minimum security lighting.
because I know it's also right near the 53 exit too.
Good location,
And it's a good location. I mean, like I said, it's right there, because I believe there's a truck place right across from the property, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
yeah. Truck storage, yeah.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Any other questions? A couple for staff. Thank you, sir. So this would be automatically a special use, given it's a gas station, right? Even in this district?
The gas station is a special use, the drive-through is a special use. So you'd see them as one application. You'd also need, there'd be a plat of consolidation for the Lucy's lot to be folded into this lot. I think that lot is a different zoning district, so we'd want to put them both on one district. I think that'll end up being C1, which is the retail district that the corner parcel takes. So a lot of steps, but it's just one hearing, it's one application.
Any other relief that we'd be required to give that would be contemplated, knowing where we are now in the project?
Yeah, very preliminary here. I don't know that we're seeing any necessarily.
Yeah, that's correct. So at this preliminary stage, we, in terms of bulk and setbacks and things like that, landscape requirements, I believe what we're looking at is compliant with our code requirements. So, as we do work through the plan review, I don't want to rule out more relief down the road, but I believe with this site plan, that list that we mentioned about covers it.
Sure, just straightforward special use with the consolidation of the plat effectively, the two main ones.
Yeah, and again, zoning, I mean, the
Yeah.
use is a special use in either zoning district, but I think we would want a new parcel to have a single zoning.
Right.
And then they would have to come in front of us for the design plans, the building plans, and all that other stuff, correct?
Yeah, I expect you would see that all as part of one hearing. So we do the zoning, the plat, and the special use with the plans you're looking for, Commissioner, all in one item,
Okay, thank you very much.
or
So-
at least one hearing.
Thoughts on just the impact in the general area in terms of traffic and road usage, and given the other surrounding uses, what cities take there?
Yeah, it is definitely an industrial area. I mean, it's a little ironic that our Gulf Road corridor is our highest industrial classification. It's all office, and this is light industrial, and it's all heavy trucks. But that's what we have. There's automotive repair to the east. There's automotive repair to the west. There was manufacturing to the north until the Islamic Society moved in immediately to the north, and then a similar smattering of uses to the south. I'd point out too, there's a large Amazon distribution facility up the road too. I'm sure diesel will probably do pretty well here. As a practical matter, I personally think it's a little silly to have a gas station here and not have semi-truck facilities, knowing the type of traffic that's in this area. Conversely, being so close to this gas station, I don't know that there's been a release there or something like that, but it would probably be difficult to redevelop for environmental reasons. Gas stations usually are, especially for the Lucy's parcel being so small. It's hard for me to imagine a feasible use there other than the expansion of one of the adjoining parcels.
Yeah, that's gonna be an impact on the Islamic church that's right next to it. I think that's maybe, 500 feet from that development? Maybe 1,000?
Yeah, that's the property line immediately north. In that photo there, you can see that driveway just to the east is the emergency bypass for the ISNS main driveway coming in. So it's at the far edge of their lot. It does put the the semi-traffic over there. Certainly, we can share a copy with those plans with them for information, and they, of course, could appear at a hearing too. They'd get notice. Again, the past proposals I saw before Graham C. Stores, who's the client of the architect here, purchased it, either were not viable or would have relied on ISNS giving cross-access for a drive-through, which would have been worse. You know, it's a very small parcel to try and accomplish any kind of, certainly an M1 zoned development on, which I think is the zoning of that north lot, which is to the right on this drawing.
Okay. Thank you.
So do we like it, we hate it? Any thoughts?
Based
Seems
upon
pretty good to
going
me.
down Hicks Road and seeing the truck traffic, I think it's a great opportunity for it. It's a great opportunity to get rid of that car wash that has been sitting there for what, like 10 or 15 years that hasn't been used.
When I came to the city, I inherited a list of blighted properties, and this one was probably about the middle, and I'm happy that it's slowly working its way up, but you know, I would be happy to see it redeveloped.
I would be too, and I think it's a great opportunity. I agree with you. This is very heavy truck traffic going in and out of there. I think it would be very well used, and as soon as it gets out to the trucking industry, that there's one there, I'm sure it'll be busy.
It's gonna crush my daughter Lucy's dream of working at Lucy's car wash when she's old enough to work. But you know what? I think it's a good
It's
idea.
a good life lesson.
I think it's a good idea. I've never seen anyone in there. I'm like, oh, I think it's out of business.
Well, I don't think it's even usable. I think it's been
No,
shut
I-
down for years.
I look at it and I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't think that thing was open.
Yeah.
I think before 2019 it was used a lot, but after 2019, I don't think it was used at all.
Yeah, I mean, seems like a great use for the site. It'd be great to get it developed, have it more productive. It's totally in keeping with the rest of the area. The other neighbors will get noticed, the Alamic Center, the restaurant, and if they have issues with it, they'll let us know at that time. But I don't see any reason not to proceed as planned, and I think you're good to go.
And you come in with like a well-planned thing with all, and button it up with the city, I would be for it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no real recommendations other than go for it in terms of any things we need to see or want you to change, right?
Right.
I mean,
Just make sure you put
sounds
in
good.
landscaping and everything too, like,
Absolutely.
okay,
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, on to matter number 4. After that slight detour, this is now a public hearing on a text amendment regarding fencing and walls. Petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows. Proposed amendment would clarify provisions that govern where decorative walls, fences, and screens may be located in various districts. The amendments may allow the fencing of vacant lots. The amendments may specify that with a planned or within a planned development, fences may only be erected pursuant to the planned development. The amendments may clarify that decorative walls, fences, and screens are not treated as accessory structures and may eliminate references to decorative walls, fences, and screens being treated as accessory structures. Staff, is the file in order and has public notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
I'll motion to open the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, fencing and walls, and enter the staff report into the record.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now open. Staff, take it away.
Certainly. Before Mr. Savage gives his presentation, I'll just say here for these next 4 items, we think they're pretty straightforward. We're giving very brief presentations.
Mhm.
It's not to discourage your discussion, but just understand we're keeping it 30,000 foot for you. I will also add on this item, as well as one other item, there's a revised exhibit there at the dais for you that Mr. Savage will be referring to. So we
Great.
have copies here if anyone
That
else
one?
needs them.
Just so I know which one. Thank you.
Yep.
Certainly.
Take us up to 30,000 feet.
Okay, so our fence code is largely administered by the building inspectors. They will often be the ones who do plan review for fences. And what we've noticed over the course of working with these regulations is there's been quite a few inconsistencies in the language, and also particularly in the difference between the language and what's in the images within the code. So we wanted to just kind of strip it back a little bit and make sure that the code language is unambiguous, very clear, very clean. And while we're in there, we've fiddled with it a little bit just to make a few things possible with fences. So we've removed fences, walls, and hedges. We believe this was a drafting error that was in the accessory use table, so we've removed that entirely. Fences would be regulated through a different section. We've separated decorative walls as a separate kind of category, which would be able to be installed within any required yard. So this means that you would be able to, put decorative walling around landscaping or something in your front yard where ordinarily you cannot have a fence. We have clarified the permitted locations of fences on corner lots. There was quite a bit of confusion about whether you could build to a property line or only to where the building ends on that lot within corner side yards. There was quite a bit of ambiguous language in the code on that. And we've also removed the maximum for maximum height for screening for outdoor storage. The code had it at a lower maximum height than you would ordinarily be permitted for commercial or industrial districts, which it seems a little counterintuitive when you're trying to screen outside storage materials. You may want to have taller fences, for instance. Further on, we've created a condition where you could build fencing on vacant parcels. This would allow a bit more discretion and liberty for instance, park district properties where there's no structure, but they may need fencing. It allows us to build fencing in those locations more easily. So we've removed the old graphic to the left of this frame. In particular, the two places where our inspectors were tripping up, and occasionally we were tripping up, was the difference between corner lot and reverse corner lot. These are definitions that talk about how a corner property relates to the property next to it or behind it, but within those illustrations it's not clear. So we've added some context in the new graphic showing those adjacent properties or neighboring properties to show you which one is in fact a corner lot or a reverse corner lot. To show you kind of real world examples, these are a couple of permits that we've been working through recently. The property on the left there is a corner lot. The old code language would have allowed the property to only build a fence within that yellow line, which is connecting the building to the property line along the rear of that property. Fundamentally, the property behind it, which is the large commercial property, actually backs onto their property and would technically be able to build fencing to the side yard property line. So we've just basically made it possible for both of those structures to fence in their side yards when they're abutting a property with the same kind of orientation. And here we have another permit that we did recently, which was a triple frontage lot. So I will add, both of these conditions are fairly rare. Most of the time you have what's called a reverse corner lot, where your house your rear yard would back onto your neighbor's side yard rather than their rear yard. So you wouldn't have those lots back to back like that. For triple frontage lots, there's only a few of these in town, again, quite rare, but under the old code language, you would only have been able to build a fence where the yellow line is here, so not extending beyond the building line. And then we've basically changed that to allow them to build to the same location that their neighbors have been able to build fences. So it'd be fencing in that side yard as well. That is most of it. I will add as well, Glenn, did you want to touch on planned developments?
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Savage. I know this all seems like small stuff, but I would say in our department, the three most common complaints are, why can't I build a fence there? Why can't I build my driveway there? And why can't I build my shed there? Many of which is just artifacts of the code being written in a bit of a confusing way for a layperson, and those are things we're trying to fix. In the world of planned developments, typically in a planned development, in the modern day, you would plan for fences as part of that. Often in certain types of planned developments, you don't want any fencing at all in cluster or open space developments. This provision is meant to very clearly say that, in a planned development, you should only be building fences that way. So it's not, the planned development doesn't give you exceptions, but it's supposed to be built to that. Folks can still get a minor change that involves meeting some standards to be able to add fences if they need to. Some of these changes you're seeing in here, really bad change in vacant lots is coming out of some of the property activities at the Gallagher headquarters. So of course they have a large area of vacant property. They have some unique security concerns out there as a major corporate headquarters. I don't think it was intended that if you have a vacant lot, you're not allowed to secure it at all. I mean, I think that's just a coincidence of how this language was written. Adopting this would solve that problem for that project as well as for other future projects.
And I understand that you also included parks where they put up a fence around the baseball thing that wasn't allowed initially.
You could read the code as saying it's not allowed for those ball fields, for tennis courts. Another great example is pools. I mean, the code requires you to have a safety fence around a pool, but again, if you read this literally, it would tell you you can't. We haven't been enforcing it like that, obviously, but since we're in here cleaning it up, we wanted to make it even more clear.
And since we allowed the pickleball, that was already included in that development, correct?
Correct.
Where they had to have a fence, correct? If
Correct.
I remember correctly. Okay. All right. Now, what about existing structures? So if somebody has a fence that was built a long time ago and now they want to extend it, they can?
The current code deals with that. If you give me a moment, I can pull it up. I mean, I believe it's the same as other non-conforming, but we can get it here in just a moment, and I don't have to guess and hope I'm right. Yeah, so fences legally constructed before they became non-conforming can continue. When you replace the fence, you'd have to bring it into conformance. So you could keep repairing it. You lose a plank, you can put a plank back up. I don't know of any fences that would be non-conforming because of what we're doing. I think it's almost always becoming more permissive in the examples I can think of. And so if someone can now build a fence where they can't, of course they could come pull a permit and move their fence out.
Okay, thank you very much.
So it sounds like you've had several live cases where you've tried to apply the existing wording and it just doesn't make sense, and you've had to turn people away in effect, right?
Yeah, the property on screen at the moment was in the permitting process within the last couple of weeks, and there was kind of a bit of head scratching as to what the interpretation of the code really inferred for these folks. So ultimately we ended up taking a more liberal approach for this particular permit, but we wanted to make that give it some solid footing with the rewrite.
So you allowed the application even under the existing wording, just kind of based on discretion? Is that?
You can blame me for that one, not Mr. Savage. You can read, some of the language in there is just so vague.
Sure,
You can
kinda
read
do
multiple
whatever.
ways.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just not.
Got it.
Anytime you have me and Rob having to debate each other as to what the right way to
Sure.
read it is, that's
Time to change
that's
it.
not a good sign.
Although we trust you guys to come up with the right. But what if there's a tie? I mean, 1-1, then
Well,
council, you're the tiebreaker?
I think title is the tiebreaker in that one.
Yeah.
I think Rob Savage could probably take me in a fair fight, but that's not
Sure.
how we resolve things in government yet.
They go out and they flip a coin, heads
Right.
is one night, tails
Yeah.
the other way, right?
What code section is that in? So then, assuming we recommend and then city council approves, not just for this change, but all these changes we're talking about, does it take effect then immediately, or is there, how does that work in terms of the effective date
As soon as
for
the
these,
ordinance,
for these amendments?
yeah, as soon as the ordinance passes.
Okay. So there's no waiting period or?
Correct.
Great. No questions from me, anything?
And there's just a lot of updating of a lot of books.
Yeah, we do keep, I think there's one paper copy around. I mean, all of us in the building just about use this electronic version now, which is nice. Seems like the paper copies were never really kept up the right way.
Yep. Okay, anyone from the public here on this matter? Seeing nobody, can I then have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
I'll motion to close the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, fences and walls.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos, by voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes, all opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now closed. Can I have a motion for recommendation to approve the petition and the findings?
Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make findings of fact provided by the petitioner attached to here as Exhibit 1 and recommend that the City Council approve the text amendment as set forth in the draft ordinance for public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, fencing and walls.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchard. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerken,
Yes.
Commissioner Roos,
Yes.
Chair Buckingham.
Yes, with 4 yeses and 0 nos, the recommendation for approval will be forwarded to the City Council for first reading at their meeting November 10th, 2025. That concludes matter number 4. On to matter number 5, which is a public hearing regarding a text amendment for solar energy systems, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows. The proposed amendment would update various provisions related to solar energy systems, including adopting an updated definition of solar energy systems and potentially defining related terms, updating the definition of building coverage to clarify that solar energy systems are not included, inserting a definition of impervious surface to clarify that solar energy systems are not included, modifying how the zoning code regulates the height of solar energy systems in order to be more permissive for rooftop mounted solar, and amending the regulations specific to solar energy systems to modify or eliminate appearance requirements applicable to these systems. Staff, is file in order and has proper notice been given?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
I'll motion to open the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, solar energy systems, and enter the staff report.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now open. Staff?
Certainly. So you may remember a few months back, the city engaged in the EV readiness program. Well, we're doing it again for solar. So we're partaking in a program called Soul Smarts run by the Department of Energy, and as part of this, we're just modernizing and updating a few of our zoning, and then later on our permitting and inspections frameworks, and get our communications out there and try and promote a bit more rooftop solar development in town. So this should be a relatively straightforward one. We received a zoning review by the Department of Energy, who gave us a few directions we could take with improving our code, just to try and build in best standards for solar. So we've added, we've taken some of their advice, and we've worked with what we've got for some of it as well. So we've added some new definitions for solar energy systems, which just a bit more encompassing of all the equipment entailed within those systems. We've added a definition for impervious surface. That is actually a phrase that kind of is mentioned in the code several times and never quite clarified, so it's probably a good thing to have regardless. It excludes solar energy systems from the impervious surface and lot coverage calculations. And we've also defined community solar, which is kind of larger scale solar developments that can serve energy back into the grid for the community. So in terms of these bulk and zoning requirements, we did have a condition where solar systems could not be higher than the building limit, or building height restriction rather. So we have removed that condition, and if your building is at the height restriction for your zoning district, you can still install solar panels. Generally, per most manufacturer specifications, they don't want you to install them too much higher anyway. That becomes there's problems with wind load and potential damage to your roof that way. So they can extend a little bit above the maximum height. The current code limited ground-mounted accessory solar panels to a maximum of 25% of the lot of the building footprint. The lot coverage of the yard that it's in. We have removed this condition. You could build more solar if you wanted to, just provided that the ground underneath it is a permeable surface. So if there's grass or even compacted dirt, you can still build solar. We have we've made it possible for vacant lots to install solar. Again, this is in response partially to another AJ Gallagher project that might be installing a reasonably large-scale solar farm for their purposes, but that would be on an adjacent lot. We think it makes sense just to allow them to do that. It serves the primary structure on that principal lot well. And then we have created, we've removed a few of the requirements for design and material that we had initially. So generally speaking, our zoning regulations were just like a duplicate of what typically exists on the market anyway. We required that they are anodized aluminum, and most panels on the market are going to be anodized aluminum. That's just what they're made of. So we just kind of removed that standard. It does build in a little bit more flexibility. If there are alternative products such as flexible panels or something, they would be permitted. But really it's just about removing those barriers to entry. And importantly, we removed the glare requirement. We don't have an effective way to administer, glare restrictions. We very rarely, if ever, have requested a glare study for solar panels. So ultimately, it is difficult to administer on our end. Glare is really not that much of a problem. It seemed to be I think early in the days of solar adoption, it was a concern, and over time, reasonably unfounded. Solar panels are typically designed to absorb sunlight. They can emit a little bit of glare similar to windows or water, but we don't have glare restrictions on windows or water, so we're extending the courtesy to solar. And Glenn?
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit on two of these points. First, on vacant lots. So typically, some codes, if you own two lots next to each other, you can just present those lots together. You can build on them together. You don't have to re-subdivide. In rolling meadows, we generally require you to re-subdivide and consolidate, and there are strengths and disadvantages to both. In this case, we do have one live situation over at the Arthur J. Gallagher campus, as Rob was mentioning. I can foresee a few elsewhere, maybe nothing really in the hopper, where solar can make sense for a vacant lot near someone that wants to control development in their area. The practical difference between subdividing or not, it's really mostly a hurdle. We also look at it as a bit of an advantage. These solar panels have a fixed lifespan. I'm thinking it's 15 to 20 years, if I'm remembering right, thereabouts.
15 to 20.
Yeah, and so you've got a natural off-ramp to potentially redevelop that into a higher use in 15 or 20. That's a lot harder if you re-subdivide it and it's part of the property that it's with. In that case, it's going to be another solar field for 20 years, or you're waiting on folks to expand out, which they may not necessarily need to do. So we think that makes a lot of sense. The planned development part is new in the packet in front of you, or on the dais in front of you. We'd ask that be part of your recommendation. Again, we know one of these situations is going to be in the Arthur J. Gallagher planned development. It's not 100% clear to our legal if that should be a major change or a minor change. We think it makes a lot of sense that adding solar panels as an accessory use to an office is a minor change. We think it makes sense to codify that here. Happy to answer any questions. Again, primarily this is in response to the recommendations from the folks at SoulSmart, as well as Mr. Savage's good work. Either of us are happy to answer any questions.
So when we make our recommendations, we need to add that they need to clarify the SCS.
I think you can make your
approval of
motion just with the modification requested by staff. If you just put that in your motion.
For the planning for the plan development.
For plan developments, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think these make good sense. Look like there's a lot of hard work put into this, and you've got a lot of feedback from Department of Energy. How long did that take to just kind of work through all that?
We started the program a bit over a month ago now, and they only took 10 days or so to review our code and give us their response. Then from then, it's been the last couple of weeks of us working through our code and seeing what we should adapt and not.
And is the city seeing a lot of interest in solar panels, either from residents or businesses?
We've had a few we've had a few permits pulled for solar this season. We're hoping that we can try and build more. I think there's a lot of roofs in town, and
There's a couple next to me on my block.
Same here.
I'm expecting
a lot of roofs,
a bit.
a lot of sun.
it's got to be good partnership there.
Yeah. That world's changing quite a bit. At least at the big scale, there was a lot of interest when some of the community solar legislation was coming out. Some of the changes in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act are compromising the credits those folks will get. So there might be a few more projects coming online next year, and I think that will get quieter. I'm expecting there will be, I'm not sure about the new energy bill in the state, but I think there will be increasing support to help folks put that on locally within Illinois for residential. So commercial coming down, residential coming up maybe. I think this puts us in a good position for both of those trends.
The biggest issue with solar power is that if you have to change a roof, it all has to come off, and then it has to be put on. We had a neighbor do that, and the company that installed it refused to come back, and they had to have it installed by somebody else. So I'm just saying there are
Right.
issues with it that I know of, because I saw it happen. But it's a great technology, and I agree, it's helpful. But again, in 15 years, you have to replace every single panel.
And this
Same
would
thing
be
with
a,
the wind
right,
same thing with a wind turbine. They only have a lifespan of 20 years. So that's the major drawback of those green technologies, is that they do have an end life. But I understand it.
got a plan for it.
Yeah, I got a plan
Yep,
for it.
just like everything else we're doing tonight, or you guys have recommended. So this would be a permitting process if a resident wanted to put solar. There's a permit that the city would issue, and you'd go through, the experts would go through and make sure the requirements are met.
That's correct.
And if they're not, there would be what, a variance that would need to be requested potentially?
I can't think of many examples where a variance would be
Maybe the height,
required.
like the height requirement?
It's pretty unlikely that you would see a variance for height based on this. Just given that there are kind of
Yep.
physical limits to how tall they can be. When mounted to a roof, they have to kind of angle towards the sun, which really only gives them a couple of feet of extra elevation on top of a roof. So
Sure.
yeah.
But the installers, they need to be familiar with this code and the requirements, and
certainly.
they're
And-
obviously
and,
just
you know,
part of the
our
business,
code-
right?
Our,
Yeah.
our permit review is. Do you want to? Sorry.
No, you're good, we're jumping around. But most of the requirements that these installers have to follow now are the building code, the electrical code. They're pretty standard jurisdiction to jurisdiction. A lot of what the DOE report was recommending was really getting rid of things that looked to them like they weren't very standard. I would say in practice, like many of these haven't come up. The height one, I'm surprised hasn't come up. I mean, that probably would have actually stopped some installations. The rest of these, again, most systems in the market meet our materials requirements already. In the glare world, we aren't asking for glare studies already. I think it's in there as an extra enforcement tool, but it's just not contemporary anymore to have that there. Again, even here in the veto session a few days ago, the state is making it even harder for us to prohibit these systems. Nothing in here deals with that, but it's getting to be a very homogenized market. You go buy a roof, your roofer can pretty much work wherever they want in the state. I would expect solar will get there within a few years.
And so these changes are just designed to kind of future-proof things, if you will, and make things even easier in terms of solar installation, right?
I'd agree with that.
Yep, okay, great.
And the panels are based upon how big your house is. So a smaller house would get fewer power panels,
Yep.
a larger house would get more.
But they are ugly, so.
Yes, they are.
Okay, anything else from staff? Great. Anybody from the public here? Nope, good. Seeing nobody, can we then have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
A motion to close the public hearing, text amendment, City Petitioner Rolling Meadows, Solar Energy Systems.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert by voice vote. All in favor, please state yes.
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 All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now closed. Can I have a motion for recommendation to approve the petition and findings with the recommended amendment provided by staff tonight?
Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of fact as hereto as Exhibit 1 and recommend to the City Council to approve the text amendment as set forth in the draft ordinance for public hearing text amendment petitioner City of Rolling Meadows Solar Energy Systems, with the condition that it's also placed within the planning development area.
Great. Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gergen,
Yes.
Commissioner Roos,
Yes.
and Chair Bucky.
Yes, with 4 yeses, 0 nos, the motion for recommendation for approval will be forwarded to the City Council for first reading on November 10th, 2025. That concludes matter number 5. On to matter 6, which is a public hearing regarding a text amendment for warehousing and self-storage or mini warehouse uses. Petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows. The proposed amendment would insert a definition of self-storage mini warehouse as a land use category, clarify that the definition of warehousing has not and does not include said use, and inserting the self-storage mini warehouse use in the table as permitted or special use only in certain zoning districts. Is the file in order and is proper notice been given, staff?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter and to enter the staff report into the record?
Motion to open the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner City of Rolling Meadows, warehousing and self-storage, mini warehouse uses, and enter the staff report.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please state no. 4 yeses and 0 nos. The motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now open. Staff, your turn.
Yeah. So, in the recent, the last couple of months, there's been a little bit of interest in additional self-storage facilities in town. Staff have not quite had clear understanding from our code as to whether our definition for warehousing included self-storage. We generally think that they are distinct land use categories that can be treated quite separately. In terms of built form, you tend to have low-lying, very kind of sprawling structures in self-storage facilities with a lot of entrances, and they have different pressures in terms of traffic and use intensity. They are not particularly active uses. They're fairly low generation from a taxation or employment perspective. They don't tend to host many people. That said, they also have quite an important function. As residents may be downsizing or moving more into multifamily or apartment kind of homes, self-storage is really important. However, we just don't necessarily feel that it's appropriate to have a really widespread proliferation of self-storage facilities, and are proposing this change essentially just to ensure that we are striking the right balance and making sure there are checks and balances on and certainty for operators. So essentially we have one new definition for self-storage and an amended definition for warehousing, which would just say excluding self-storage. And then from there, self-storage would just be a special use in M1. There are already 3 self-storage facilities within the M1 district. If they were to propose expansions or new facilities, they may need to come back through for a special use permit. But ultimately, that would be clear and even treatment of those operators across that category. That pretty much sums it up. I'll keep this one nice and quick, but if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, the only self-storage facility that I am aware of that I've actually seen is the one across from the church, the Harvest Bible Church.
That is one of 3. There is also, I think that's the one pictured there. In this next frame, the U-Haul building has a self-storage component.
Yeah, that's over by the tollway, correct?
That's correct. And then there is also another one down by ATS. Lois Drive, just near the tollway as well, but further east from
Okay,
the.
but that's also like way back. It's not like up front
Yep.
in the where it's visible, correct?
Well, I mean, they're visible from the tollway.
Well, I mean, it's visible from the tollway, but if
Yeah.
you're on the roadway, it's not.
No,
No.
It's quite tucked away
Yeah.
in that kind of.
That's why I haven't seen those
Yeah,
because they're.
that's right.
But I remember, I think U-Haul came in one of the planning commissions asking to operate that as a storage facility, if I remember correctly, a while back.
So they were getting ready, I think they pulled out before they finished the project, but they were getting ready to break off part of their parking lot to be a separate self-storage concept.
Yes.
They already have some in that building, that's what they built in that building right there, which
Right.
used to be, I think Panasonic. So you can rent a space there as it is, but they were looking to expand that.
Gotcha, okay, but I do remember that one, okay.
So,
Basically, it's only gonna be in M1 is what you're
Yeah.
proposing and no other place. And every time that one wants to operate, they have to come before the planning commission, correct?
Yeah, they can continue, the existing facilities can continue to operate as
Right.
they are. If they wanted to expand, they would have to come before the commission. And if new operators wanted to set up within M1, they would also need to come before the commission.
Okay, thank you.
so under the current code, there really is no special designation for self-storage, is that correct? And how, if that's right, then how are these animals, what box do they fit in currently,
Yeah.
if
so-
any?
So all of the examples we have in town predate the current zoning code. Just different set of rules, different set of definitions. We really can't tell if the intent, what here was to treat these as warehousing and allow them much more liberally, or not to allow them any more of them at all, or they just didn't think about it when they drafted this. So, but we do think that they are a separate category use. It's a lot more consumer facing than
Sure,
cross-docking.
but the existing concept of warehousing, that's more just kind of commercial use, warehousing of
The definition.
equipment, supplies.
Yeah, the definition of warehousing, which is there in your packet, very broad. You could read it as having self-storage in there, but I would say it's really intended for business-to-business use.
Right. Okay. So, but with this being a special use, if we change the code, I mean, it doesn't look like there's really any specific requirements that would need to be met, other than parking, in
You'd
terms
have-
of like needing to, security requirements, et cetera.
Yeah, you'd have your typical special use standards. On a facility like this, there'd be a little bit of consideration to traffic. A lot of it is security. I mean, it's not, terrible, but these are, compared to other industrial users, they tend to get, more police involvement. They can be, especially if they aren't monitored adequately, they can be lucrative targets for theft. Sometimes
Yep.
there's disturbances when people get blocked over, things like that. Again, all this is to say very different in character than the typical industrial use.
But where would these security requirements be coming from? I don't see them in the proposed zoning.
You would just
Is that
evaluate them as part
just
of the
more
special
kind of
use.
Case by case,
standards.
common sense? There's no like specific, like we've seen in some other uses where, I guess those are more the highly regulated, like separately state regulated, cannabis,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Cannabis
Those
is
kind
the
of,
biggest
those are
example.
those are really bootstrapping like the state security regulations, which are not applicable here. It's just more kind of common sense, case by case.
Correct, and
Okay.
it can vary a lot by building too. I mean, there are some, I don't think we're quite there to get one, but there are some, well, you have one at U-Haul really. If you have a fully enclosed multi-story building that just has control access, you don't need nearly the same sort of security that, for example, that public storage that you see up there does, where there's potentially, you jump a fence and there's 300 different doors that you can.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the
Try.
one I can think of is right off of Northwest Highway. I believe it's in Arlington Heights, right on the corner there where the exit is. That's a secure location. You have to go in, have a key, have a passcode, all sorts of security. So
Yeah.
again, it depends on the facility. You know, you can use the one in Rolling Meadows that is across from the church that, like you said, they can jump the fence, get in there. You know, I think maybe during the day there might be one person in there at the most. And I don't know if they have any security or any cameras at night as it is now. Now, maybe the U-Haul one does and the other one does, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would be shocked if someone doesn't have something, but it just may not be
Right.
enough. And I think we've reached.
So
We have enough experience that we would want to push folks to have.
So as if another one come in, we could push to have that then, correct?
Yeah, I think, a site that didn't have, for example, like, let's say this site right here came through, not to say that
Right.
site's a problem. I don't
Right.
think we've had police issues out here, but, if they didn't have, fencing or cameras or lighting, that can bear on, your standards for a special use.
Okay, thank you.
What standard would that be?
We would determine it.
Yeah, give me one.
But where would that fit, like security? Just kind of in terms of the generic standards, just curious.
You've got your general standard on public safety. You've got site design,
Okay.
safe, maintainable,
Okay.
provide for adequate site maintenance, parking loading. I
Makes
don't
sense.
think it's a stretch to read that into
Sure.
the safety
Absolutely.
provisions. Safety to
Sure.
property is also safety.
Okay. Was any thought given to limiting the number of these in the district? Kind of like what we've done with, other certain types of uses that may not be the most desirable we can think of? Vape shops, cannabis, gambling, all that good
Gambling's
stuff.
fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we
I mean, what do you guys think on that? Did that come
consider
up?
that a little bit. You could look at it. It's not necessarily something you'd want to completely close the door to. I mean, there's not the same, like vape shops, you can make a great argument about externalities, right? I mean, there's really great public health evidence that says if you drive by a vape shop, you're more likely to smoke. I don't know that that's necessarily true here. I mean, you could do it. You're not prohibited from doing it, but it doesn't quite rise to the same level.
Yeah, so you're not trying to kind of not make worse a public health condition, or you're not trying to, encourage bad morals with gambling, whatever the commentary is there. There's nothing like that here, other than just people have too much stuff.
I mean,
to
I
clean
think-
house, but I don't know if that rises to the level of public interest, right?
I will say,
Which we'd probably need to limit it with the number, or no?
I think you can find the findings to limit it to a number.
Okay.
We just didn't recommend it. I will say, as a bit of an amusing anecdote, given the time, but so a
Sure.
gentleman who lives on my street runs the self-storage place that I kept all my junk at when I was in the middle of moving. And, I thought it was the darndest thing that they give you a free truck to move all your stuff in, and you're on your own to get all your stuff out. So I think there's a little, they know how to get you in there.
Right.
They know once you move in that it's gonna be harder. You're just
hard
gonna
to
keep
get
paying that
out.
$20,
Right.
yeah.
Was it first month for $1 or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you gotta pay for 2 months at least.
Oh, okay. Well,
And then the 7th year, you're like, I'm gonna clean this out one of these days.
I had the one I spoke about over there. That's where my mom stole her stuff when she had to move out of her house, and she put it next to us. It was really easy to get it in. It was very expensive, month to month. because of the extra security, the other levels that you had to get in, you know, they would say they had a card system there at that point in time. You got a card, you had to go up and use a code to get to the floor, and then once you got a code, you had to bring your own lock to lock the door.
Oh, man.
And then, so when we emptied that out, there was a move out fee, and we had to move everything out on our own.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I think at some point in time, if we have 3 now, maybe we say we get as large as 10, maybe less, depending on how much space we have and the districts that we're in. If we're in
Think we
M1.
could have that many in the district? Yeah.
Oh, trust me, they're all over the place. If you go up, you can make multiple levels, like the one that I was in.
Do we want to try to limit it by number, or are we just gonna?
I think we just get recommendations from them and let them kind of figure that out.
What do you mean recommendations?
Well, I mean, I think that's what they're gonna look at is limiting how many we could have.
Well, we'd need that in the ordinance, wouldn't we?
does, right? 'Cause
Yeah, it's a special use, we can deny.
Well, right,
You s-
but
you're saying
it's gotta be
you can't use
based
a
on the
warehouse.
standards.
Right.
It can't just be, well, there's too many in the, or can it be? You
This
got
was-
too many in the district, so we're not approving your special use, even though it's not in the code.
The special use process does give us a bit more control over the land use, and if you know there is a sense of oversupply, market saturation, you know, the city,
Okay.
it allows a bit more leverage for the city to be able to say this is not as suitable as another land use. Glenn, did you want to comment?
I hate to keep picking on this. All right, we wouldn't recommend it here. We are, the examples we have in the code, there's great rationale for it. I don't know if, I wouldn't say there's bad rationale here, but just, we are hesitant to do things that interfere with commercial competition. And a numeric limit would make a big obstacle for new entrants that would benefit the incumbents, and that's something we are always careful about recommending.
But in an extreme example, somebody came to us and there was a massive oversupply and there were other kind of negative externalities, then
Absolutely.
we could certainly deny the special use as long as we're relying on, the absence of the one or more standards being met.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't need like a hard and fast, okay, so we'll just deal with it later.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Good. Okay, anyone from the public here? Nope. Okay, can I have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
I'll motion to close the public hearing, text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, warehousing and self-storage, mini warehouses uses.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
Yes. All
Yes.
opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now closed. Can I have a motion for recommendation to approve the petition and the findings?
Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Burlingame Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of fact provided by the petitioner and attached hereto as Exhibit 2, and recommend that the City Council approve the text amendment as set forth in the draft ordinance for public hearing. Text amendment, petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, warehousing and self-storage mini warehouses uses.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchard. By voice, staff, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gherkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Roos,
Yes.
and Chair Buckingham.
Yes, with 4 yeses and 0 noes, the motion for recommendation for approval will be forwarded to the City Council for first reading on November 10th, 2025. On to the final matter, number 7, public hearing regarding a text amendment for electric vehicle charging system regulations. Petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows. The proposed amendment would modify provisions regarding parking space markings for EV charging and the requirements to provide EV chargers in connection with certain land uses. Has proper notice been given, and is the file in order?
Yes, it is, and yes, it has.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing in the matter?
A motion to open the public hearing, text amendment petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, electrical vehicle charging system regulations.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing in the matter is now open. Staff,
Yeah.
presentation.
I will try to keep this one to under 1 minute, I think. 2 minor modifications to the recently adopted electric vehicle charging station code section that we worked on through the Mayor's Caucus program. So we did set up a requirement for EV parking stations to be painted entirely in green. We've kind of figured out this is a little bit extra. We probably don't need that much green. We can dial it back a little bit and have some green and a decal that indicates that it's for EV parking spaces. This just makes permitting a lot easier. There's not much standardization across the industry for install of these parking spaces. So we want to build in a little bit more flexibility with the site design for that. And then secondarily, we want to remove the requirement for lots that do not serve a principal structure. This is partially in response to an upcoming Park District project, which would just be at the threshold of requiring commercial electric vehicle charging stations to be installed. We don't see much utility in supplying this equipment here. They don't have utilities nearby. It's not very visible. People, it's hard to know what kind of usership it would have. It would be quite a burden for them to install it there. So we are removing that requirement. Happy to answer any questions.
So what's meant by primary structure for this purpose?
So anytime there is a building on a lot,
Yep.
and a parking lot that serves that building, generally speaking, outside of Park District properties, I'm not aware of any properties that would have a parking lot that is not,
Without a building?
that's not for a building.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a park would be an obvious example.
That's correct.
Okay. Like the new, with the new playground across from Plum Grove? Is that an example?
That would be an example. If they were building that parking lot, from scratch, that would, under the current rules, that would
Sure.
require EV
Okay.
charging, but under this rule, it would not.
Okay. And I see we're testing out the new painting designation of the stalls outside in the lot, right?
That's right.
Those look new?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it would look like?
That would be one of various options.
Sure.
So full disclosure, those are the first EVs to be built in the city since you passed
Wow.
EV chargers to be built in the city since this ordinance was passed. Our contractor screwed up and painted them wrong, and this and other conversations, we had no problem just buying mechanic green paint and fixing it. Please don't think we're changing the rules over a can of green paint. But that was one of a few data points that made us realize we got this full stall painting thing wrong, especially in our snowy northern climate full of salt where paint comes off the ground in a few days, or a few years,
Yeah.
I should say.
Seems a bit overkill. Sounds like a good move. Any questions? Nope. All right. Anyone from the public? Nope. Okay, can I then have a motion to close the public hearing in the matter?
Motion to close the public hearing, text amendment petitioner, City of Rolling Meadows, electrical vehicle charging system regulations.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
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 All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the public hearing and the matter is now closed. Onto the sample motion for recommendation to approve the petition and the findings, which I believe there's a typo in it. It asks for approval of a special use permit. It should be approval for a text amendment, right?
That's
So if we
correct.
can
Text
make sure
amendment.
that's
Apologies.
reflected in the record. Okay, so motion, need a motion for recommendation to approve.
Based upon the submitted petition and testimony presented, I move that the City of Rolling Meadows Planning and Zoning Commission make the findings of facts provided by the petitioner and attached to here as Exhibit 2, and recommend that the City Council approve the text amendment as set forth in the draft ordinance for a public hearing text amendment petitioner City of Rolling Meadows electric vehicle charging system regulations.
Motion by Commissioner Gerken. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Roos. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Gergen,
Yes.
Commissioner Roos,
Yes.
Chair Buckingham.
Yes, with 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the recommendation for approval is approved and will be forwarded to City Council for first reading on their November 10th, 2025 meeting. That concludes matter number 7. We've already handled the Hicks Road discussion item, and now we're on to other miscellaneous discussion items and staff reports.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify
Okay.
one thing. If I could, I'm happy to proceed through these next 2 items straight in order.
Please.
The first discussion item is your list of proposed meeting dates for 2026. If there's no requested changes, we will publish these in our regular calendar. As in the past, on August, and for our August meeting date, we moved that to a Wednesday, one day back to the National Night Out. I'd also point out on November 3rd, that's Election Day, just as today would be if there were elections in Illinois. You're not prohibited from doing anything on that day. You can still meet, but wanted to draw that to your attention as well in case there was a desire to move that date.
Well, if we have an election, I would probably vote, and I can't vote till after I get off the train, which is 6 o'clock. So I probably wouldn't make that meeting. So that's just throwing that out there.
It is very easy for us to move that one day earlier or one day after if you guys play.
And you do have a typo on ours. You said proposed 2025 PCC meeting dates instead of 2026.
Apologize for the error.
I'm just letting you know. I changed it to 2026, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of moving the November date, so it
I mean,
doesn't
just in
conflict
case.
with the election.
I mean, if I don't know if we have an election next year or not. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know.
Yeah, you'll have, there'll be federal
Yep.
races next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
midterm.
then I would definitely move it.
Yeah, other than that, I'm good with it if you guys are.
I have no problem with it. I'll be here.
Tentatively, we'll confirm it with you, but I think we'll plan to move it one day earlier to Monday unless there's a conflict.
Sure.
That's fine. Can do. That's garbage
Good way
night,
to
but I
start
can
the
always
week.
put it out later.
It was that Monday Night Football, but
Oh, yeah, wait, Monday Night Football? Wait,
Oh, you can do Wednesday.
is the schedule out yet? Bears play?
won't know
Maybe
for
we
a
should
while.
have a
Not
meeting.
till March or April or May.
Can always flip it around.
What's that?
Can always move it again.
Sure. Okay, as long as it's away from the election night, we'll figure it out. I'm sure it's good. Okay.
2
Keep
more
going.
reports, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
One is more probably for your personal reference as much as a committee reference. The City Council made some updates to boards, commissions, and committees. Most of this is, good for the goose, good for the gander. These mirror rules that exist or being added to the City Council concurrently. So there's some term limits now. You're limited to serving 3 consecutive terms. Anything you've served up until this point doesn't count. So if you like, you can still serve over 12 more years on this commission before you get to use that as an excuse not to be reappointed. Don't count it all in one place. Familial relationships, there's some rules about disclosing if you're related to a sitting mayor or alderperson. Now you'd just be prohibited from being appointed. That applies to you. Abandonment of office. If you don't show up to 3 meetings in a row without good cause, you're deemed to have resigned as of that 3rd miss. So attendance engagement is important. And then finally, I don't think this body has probably done this at all at least since COVID, but there are provisions in state law to let you dial in if you're away from this room physically for certain permitted reasons. That is now an option available to you if you like. There are some rules that we need to work through if you would like to call in from afar. So please just contact us if that applies to you. After that, next meeting, a few items queued up. One being the return of Legion Football Club. I think that's going to be pulled together. The second is a new gymnasium at St. Mary's Coptic Church. They're getting ready to annex in their south parcel, consolidate the north parcel, and build a pretty large gymnasium, retreat center, daycare there. This project has been cooking to some extent since I've been with the city. It's been, I think, over 3 years in the making now. So good to see that potentially come to fruition. That would conclude our report.
Okay. What was the Legion football? They were here before, or was
They
that
had
a practice
applied-
facility or an indoor practice?
Yeah, so back in 2023, they got a special use permit for an indoor soccer facility. They came looking to expand that facility with, I think it was a cafeteria and ping pong. They transparently had built out that facility without permits and without coming through this process first. So you could, I suppose in theory, you could build it out, maybe, as long as you didn't use it. But those are things we needed to fix before they could even come to you for a hearing. So the good news is it looks like it was built pretty well. We've cleaned up the paperwork part of that, but they would still need a special use from this group to be able to use that space legally. You'll also remember that there were some concerns raised by a neighbor about drinking in a parking lot, and parking and things like that. That was a few months ago. So that will be a interesting hearing. I think it will be queued up successfully for December.
Okay. Back to the operating rules for a little bit. I don't think we'd really need it that much, if ever, but the remote participation, I mean, how big a deal is that to implement, and how much notice would you guys need?
I think
if it ever did come about.
Yeah, the code asks for at least 2 days or as soon as is practical if it's an emergency. So the 3 rules are personal illness or disability. I think that extends to your family members too. I'd have to double check. Or no, that would be the 3rd one, family or other emergency. And then employment purposes or public business, the business of the city. So if your work has you traveling and you'd like to call in from a hotel room from out of town, that's permissible. You'd call in just by phone here. There's a phone system that's pretty easy to operate.
But this doesn't change into the ability to have a fully remote hearing, which I know we never even did, even in the depths of COVID. We were here, masked up.
Yeah, I didn't.
I think there was some limits on the ability of the city to get comfortable with doing it fully remote under the public notice provisions, or open meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a goofy town. I know the town I was with at that time, myself and the chairman were there. The rest dialed in, and there was some allowance for that. But no, in this case,
This is
under the
kind
normal
of the
rules,
exception
Yeah,
for
you need at
emergency.
least- 4 physically present here in the room for anyone else to call in.
Okay. Got it. And then the abandonment of office, so that's not if there's some good cause, there's some discretion there on the city's part,
I think the code is written really for medical necessity.
Okay.
So if you're having a prolonged episode, that would get you out of it. But otherwise, I think the expectation is that you would be able to at least show up in 1 out of 3
Okay.
meetings.
About people who travel like Leon over here.
Yeah, we should probably make everyone aware of this, you know? This is probably the most relevant of, or I think this could have been applied in the past to certain members, maybe still could be. So I think we need to make people aware of it, right?
That was the goal of putting it here on your
Sure,
agenda, and I
but
think I'll
there's
be
only
emailing folks
Sure.
as well.
Okay, we've got one strike against the other three, so
That's
they better be
that's
here.
correct.
Okay, so, but you'll email everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, great. With the, I guess with all these, right, would be relevant to email, just to make sure people see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get that out here before the end of the week.
Perfect. And then last thing, I know, back to our favorite little topic, the Kirchhoff Road plan. I think some of us were at the city council meeting, and just maybe for everyone's benefit, I don't know if the city wants to provide an update. It sounds like, as I remember it, although it's 2 months ago, the council approved the redevelopment or the plan exclusive of anything related to changing the roadway or the
Correct.
parking, right?
That's correct, yeah. So no on-street parking, no
Yeah.
bike lanes. The road stays in its 5-lane configuration. They kept the rest, and we are working on implementing the rest. So there's a few things already in the works. You might have seen separately. You might have seen some new signage and things starting to go up on the corridor here just the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
We are negotiating a contract right now for the redevelopment of the old fire station property. We're speaking with folks about other properties on the strip as well. I believe that property in front of the townhouses just went to auction. I haven't heard the results of that yet. Some money budgeted for public art next year, which we expect will land on the corridor. So some parts of that are already underway.
Okay, great.
And I know what I've read they were already talking about putting up the same thing on that road where the kids cross, that is in
Oriole.
Mount Prospect. One of those things that the lights turn on.
Yeah, was there, I saw there was a traffic study that was authorized by the city council for that?
Yes, so there were, in a sense, two. The first one you heard about in September. The second one, with the road diet off the table, the best alternative we have for Oriole is, which is that unsignalized intersection by the school, is a what's called a rapid rectangular flashing beacon. So there are some of those in Mount Prospect. They're not a perfect solution by any means. I mean, it's additional light to remind drivers to yield, push button operated. But we have an engineer drafting the plans needed to try to get that a federal grant, Safe Routes to School grant administered by IDOT. So that grant, if we receive it, would pay for probably most of the project. It's an expensive project.
That's 80 grand is what I had saw.
I think 80 grand for the engineering, and then the feds would be picking up, I want to say it's like $150,000 tab.
Yep.
So
It's very expensive, and a couple people said it's more expensive than doing the road diet.
Wow.
it's most of the way there, depending. Some ways to do it might end up being more expensive.
Right. Because I've gone past
Okay.
the one in Mount Prospect, it's by the old Arlington Beverage
Mhm.
Company, where the lights turn on and flash, and you're supposed to slow down and stop.
Mellis Park.
Yeah, Milas Park, right next to Milas Park.
Yeah, there's a few in a row there on Central.
Yeah, well, I've never seen the one on Central, I've only seen the one in Mount Prospect. I've never seen one on Central.
Central. Might be misremembering.
Okay, well,
Well, then I think maybe that it, no, that's Central, that's, I forget what road, it's Milas. It's over by Milas Park, maybe that is Central, as you go way down there. And it is Central, as you go way down to Milas Park,
Yeah.
I believe it is. It is Central, that's the one that I know, right next to the old Arlington Beverage Building.
okay,
Arlington
well,
Pop Shop.
What?
It's Arlington Pop Shop.
progress, I guess. Any other questions of staff from you guys? Okay. Anyone else from the public want to comment on any random item that comes to mind? Now's the time. Mr. Seymour, last chance? Okay, thanks for staying. Hearing nobody needing public comment time, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll motion to adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission planning meeting as of November 4th, 2025.
Motion by Commissioner Gherkin. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Burchert. By voice vote, all in favor, please state yes.
Yes.
All opposed, please state no. With 4 yeses and 0 nos, the motion carries and the meeting is adjourned as of 9:41 p.m. The next regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission will occur December 2nd. That's it. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
See you, Matt. So the code is perfect now. There'll be no other changes we'll ever need Right. with all that
We'll
work.
possibly talk about that.
I'm sure
Until
they're
next
reviewing,
time.
I'm
Well,
sure they're reviewing
like
every code that's
The
in
people
there.
buying the old firehouses, the pole dancing gonna be a special use?
I really hope we're.
Well, we gotta write that in that it's permitted.